This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap. What is it they say at the beginning of their national anthem? Oh, Canada. I think that's where we're going this weekend. Welcome on in. You have found the Outlap F1 podcast. And as I said before, this is the 2025 Canadian Grand Prix preview episode. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. We took a slight little week off as the F1 schedule gave us a little bit of a break. I am now back from the northern hinterlands of Wisconsin, and I have full bandwidth at my disposal. So we are happy to be back on video tonight. It is good to see you now, Cody. That's great. I love the flag in the background. That's awesome. I'm going to have to try to get something similar for my background now to keep up with you. But how's it hanging and how's it going?
It's going well. My wife was kind of teasing me about like having the butterflies on in the background for the podcast all the time. And I was like, maybe people like them, but yeah, her parents were very nice, and they got me this Formula One flag. So yeah, I got a background that's a little bit more in the spirit of things.
Well, now we got to get drivers to come sign it. That's the next part of it. We got to figure out a way to do that, but something to plan for when we make our trek to COTA later this year. But that's not why the rest of you are all here. You're here to talk about the Canadian Grand Prix, and we're going to do that in just a little bit. And if you have found our show, as I say all the time, and as David Croft likes to say, welcome on in. We are glad that you are here. You can find our show as always. We do post on Blue Sky, on X, on Instagram, occasionally Discord, occasionally Reddit, but always on YouTube, even when it's difficult to sometimes get the episodes to post. At Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. If you enjoy what you are hearing and you even like what you're seeing, thank you. That'd be great. If you wanted to leave us either a subscription or a like, that would be awesome. And if you're on your favorite podcasting app, a 5-star review would also be much appreciated. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. We would love it if you would do that. What does that do for us? It helps us come up a little bit better in F1 related search results if people are looking for content like ours. You can email the show as always, outlapf1@gmail.com. We'll get your messages and your comments to us. Outlap F1 Nation, who continues to be awesome and continues to support the show. Thank you so much to Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to help us out with a monetary donation, and again, you're under no obligation to do that whatsoever, but we do put our anchor page link in our show notes. If you wanted to support the show with $1, $5, what does that all do? That just basically goes and keeps our technology relevant, allows us to keep our recording platform up to date, keep our equipment up to date, and enabled us to do recordings from weird places like the north woods of Wisconsin, which would have been something a couple of years ago we never could have even thought of doing, but we managed to do it a few times now, and we're happy that it's able to work. So you can see that link in our show notes if you'd like to do that. All right. Particulars are now all done and out of the way. We did have some news that broke, and I think the biggest one around F1 and racing circles this past week is we have a finalized 2026 calendar. There was a lot of little inklings and rumors and little stories here and there about what was potentially on the calendar, but now we have it. It's finalized. The big headlines are Imola unfortunately drops off the calendar. That was unfortunately expected. They issued a statement that said, we're not done with Formula One. We want to get back on the calendar. So they are going to do probably everything in their power to do so. Other highlights include not one, but 2 Spanish races this upcoming season. The last race on the contract for Circuit de Catalunya and the also new Madrid street race. But there is some space. The first Spanish race will be in its normal kind of place in June, and the Madrid street race will be around the 11th to 13th of September. So a good little bit of spacing out there. I do see a bit of a lack of triple headers. There are, I think, 1 or 2, but it's definitely not the crazy start to the season that we had this one. Just kind of reflecting on it, to have 2 triple headers kind of already in our rearview mirror at only race 8 just kind of says how crazy this early season has definitely been for everyone involved, not just us, but, for God forbid, the people who transport all this stuff and make this show happen and manage to do it. It's just a lot to ask of them. So I'm glad that there's some relief in some of the scheduling here. There is a Miami, Canada connection at long last. We always wondered, would we ever finally get Miami and Canada back to back? We do, but there is some space between it. But that, I think, also makes some logistical sense. So we no longer have the ping pong between like Miami, Monaco, Spain, then back to Canada, then back to Europe. They've kind of eliminated that. So those are good points. The one sticking point, which seems to be out there all over all of social media and was kind of understood kind of right away. We don't know how much of a sticking point it really is, but it's definitely going to be a sticking point next year. There does appear to be a clash with the Canadian Grand Prix next year and the Indy 500. So the question that I think I have in my head when I saw that was like, is this just a Stefano Domenicali power play? I'm not sure. The bit of good news is this is only a conflict that'll happen once every 5 years. But it is going to happen next year. And it's just kind of odd. So, Cody, what's your take on kind of the overall calendar before I kind of come back with my little rant on the power move here?
I think there's, for them, other than the rant that you're about to go on, I think that there's a lot of good things going on here. I mean, I am sorry to see Imola going, and we had talked about that before, that we actually got a pretty good race out of Imola this last time, and so it went out with a bang, at least, but yeah, we still got Australia up first, which I really like. They do seem to be moving in the direction of the logistics making more sense. Like we do start in Australia and then go to Asia and then the Middle East and then North America and then the big Europe leg. So things are being grouped together better. They could still, improve upon that. They could, move around like the stuff at the last third of the year to make more sense location wise, with their other stuff. But overall, I think it's really good. I am actually a little disappointed that this is the year that they decided to move Canada, because my birthday is on Saturday, and next year, had Canada stayed in the same weekend, Canada would have been on my birthday.
Oh.
And that's not super far. So I was thinking like, hey, wouldn't it be really cool to go see the Canadian Grand Prix on my birthday? And then Formula One was like, nope, if you want it on your birthday, you got to go to Spain. And I was like, eh. So I'm a little grumpy about that, but it's not the end of the world. The thing I'm more grumpy about is that now I might have to switch over to the Canadian Grand Prix 2/3 of the way through Indy.
Yeah, and that's like the trigger is going to ultimately be, and we don't know this at this point because they come out with the start times later. But if you're using this weekend's race as an example, it starts at 1:00 our time. That would be, the Indy 500 usually starts about 11:00 our time, assuming no rain, no delay, no reason to have a delay. This past Indy 500, we actually waited for that pesky little shower to get out of there for like 45 minutes. So we didn't exactly start the Indy 500 on time, and that meant that Kyle Larson was very, very nervous for a little while, but then it ultimately didn't matter because he crashed out anyway. But there was a lot of eyes on him as to whether or not, how long could he make or stay at the Indy 500. So there's a couple of things that annoy me about this. Number one, it seems very unnecessary. Open wheel motorsport fans are pretty universal, and we will travel in packs together. There is perfectly nothing wrong with doing Monaco and then doing the Indy 500. We like that. That all works. That especially in America. I mean, it just goes from breakfast at Monaco. That race ends. Yeah, it might not be the best race in the world, but at least we know it ends. The post-race stuff wraps up. We get our result. We know what it is. And then, boom, the Indy 500 is kicking off. If the start time isn't moved back a bit for Canada, you're going to have the last 50 laps, which is when you're going to want to watch Indy. That's when you're going to want to watch Indy. I hate to tell you, because you don't really know until those last 50 laps who's really in contention. It's kind of a bit of a shadow boxing, and you get through the first 400 miles, and the last 100 miles can just be crazy. And then the other thing you're going to get, Indy usually never finishes on time. Indy always has crashes and long safety car periods and potentially red flags, especially late if there's calls to be made and restarts and all that other stuff. So you're taking a big risk trying to put the beginning of your Canadian Grand Prix clashing with all of that. That's one. Two, 2026, we have no idea what the racing product is going to be yet. We've talked many times about how kind of concerned we are with the engine and the fact that we're hearing lots of stuff about LICO and lift and coast and no battery for the whole lap. So we have no idea how good the F1 product is going to stand up to what we pretty much know what we're going to get with the Indy 500. Unless they drastically change those cars, which there's no indication that they want to do that for next year. We pretty much know what we're going to see at the Indy 500 for the most part. 3, in the United States, particularly, we do not know how we are supposed to be consuming our Formula One yet. ESPN contract is done at the end of this season. They have not renewed it. ESPN, there's been a lot of reports that ESPN is out of the discussion, which leaves, I think, NBC, and there was Netflix and maybe Amazon Prime as your potential suitors to be your main source of F1 content. Now, if you go in NBC, okay, that's an easy flip of the channel. That could work. If you're going to a separate streaming service, we know Indy 500 is going to be free to air. If you have to then go out of your free to air and move your TV into a streaming service to do Formula One, it's going to be very hard to do both. And if you're like me and you're obsessed with screens and have multiple things going, it's going to be exceptionally hard. I mean, I kind of gave up the gambit. There have been a few times where F1 is conflicted with IndyCar, and my end of solution was, I'm just going to catch up with IndyCar later. But not for the Indy 500. That's one that I want to watch live, dang it. So
yeah, I was wondering if you would do like a fourth screen for Indy.
I probably would. I would rectify one and hook it up to the free to air and probably have it sitting at the end of my table. Where there's a will, there's a way, and there's an or. And trust me, I will figure something out. But the fact that you're going to make the general motorsport fan go do this weird twist and turn and all that when you don't have to, it's just annoying as a fan. And this is the same kind of stuff I feel as just an F1 neutral, that the sport is in such a good spot that you almost don't want to do anything to screw it up. And this could be one of those things that, yeah, it's only one weekend, but if the racing's not as good and there's not as much enthusiasm for Formula One, and it's harder to find in this country because it's not on normal network or cable television, there's a whole potential for a lot of this audience to just say, I'm going to watch the Indy 500 because they know what that is. And that's homegrown. We know who we're getting. And it's, oh, by the way, I just have to watch my Fox channel. So it's going to be a heck of a lot easier to find, you'd think. So I don't know. I'm just worried. I don't want to make a bigger deal about it. I do think you are right that there's a lot of good with this calendar. I think the logistics and that type of stuff is definitely worth bringing to the table. And I think they've done a good job. I think it's a good calendar for Formula One in a bubble, but it's not a good calendar for racing as a whole. So I'm annoyed. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see how this happens. And again, like the thing that I want to see is, when do they announce the start time? Do they push it back? Do they make it so that there's going to be some sort of a way? Or maybe they, I saw even some social media posts that said maybe Roger Penske moves Indy 500 up a half an hour, which could also
and move Indy up a half hour, move Canada back an hour or two.
And you could kind of still have it where you still kind of have your motorsport Christmas. Because that would be fine. I would be totally fine with Indy 500 ends. That's great. Let's go right into Canada pre-race and get all fired up for that. And, end my day at 6:00 and be motorsport happy.
Yeah, it'd be like watching a hockey game. You get your US and your Canada all in one.
Oh, of course. And speaking of Canadians, that's a great segue, by the way. Aston Martin and Lance Stroll. We talked about this in our review. We weren't exactly sure what was going on. There's been a lot of stories reported about what happened and what led to the wrist injury, and also what Aston Martin has said didn't happen. I don't think it's really going to be relevant at this point because the bottom line is Lance Stroll will compete in his home Grand Prix. Apparently, he is fit to race per the Aston Martin physios. And Cody, you kind of called it. You were kind of on the fence of did you think this was going to be a big deal or not? And it turns out to maybe it's just a giant nothing burger, and maybe we can all move on. And Lance Stroll is Lance Stroll. Any thoughts on this one?
Just that he wasn't going to win, or wasn't going to win. He's definitely not going to win. He wasn't going to miss any more races if he could help it because he doesn't want to risk someone else getting into that seat and doing a better job and making him look worse. So yeah, he was probably, even if he wasn't 100% fit, he was probably going to be arguing his case that I need to be in that car. So yeah, I'm not really surprised. It also could have gotten blown out of proportion. Once it started going into like the back and forth of like, oh, did he like hurt himself like punching a wall or something like that in anger? And then it was like, no, that didn't happen. Once it started going back and forth like that, I kind of stopped paying attention because I figured it's like we're never going to know probably like 100% the truth on it. And like you said, it doesn't really change anything at this point because he's back.
Right. And I honestly hope he's racing without pain. I mean, it's just a human being. I don't want to see anybody be suffering. That's never fun. I've watched drivers suffer through stuff before, and that's kind of always hard to watch. So I hope that
he's been there and done that, racing with broken hands.
Right. So the good news is if you are a Lance Stroll fan and you are a Canadian, he will be there. All right. Moving on. Next story that kind of came out, F1 or Liberty Media has kind of decided against a F1 75 style season launch in 2026. It will pretty much kick, I think, the livery reveals back to the teams. So it's kind of back to a new team comes out every day. Sometimes we get 2 a day. And then we get the grainy images of cold laps around Silverstone that don't really mean anything, but everybody wants to look at the new car. And there's going to be lots of that, especially going into this new formula. Everybody's going to want to see what the cars look like, what Adrian Newey is cooking up at Aston Martin, what McLaren have cooked up, what have Red Bull cooked up, and what have Mercedes cooked up with potentially the best engine. So lots of intrigue, but no big universal launch. I was okay with the launch that they did. It was fine. I thought it ran a little long for my personal taste, but I didn't mind there being some hype trying to get around a season, but I'm also fine if they want to go back to the way that they did it before. So, Cody, what's your thought?
I think that they were only going to continue doing things as one big event if they got significant enthusiasm from fans and the media and the teams that were going to be involved. And it seems like, at least at the time, people were like, yeah, it was kind of cool. Like, there wasn't like tons of enthusiasm, like getting extremely hyped for the new season. Like, obviously, there's always going to be hype for fans, but it wasn't anything, above and beyond what we've had before. And, we talked about before, like the benefits of each team doing their own thing as well. And yeah, so they're just going to chalk it up to, it was the 75th anniversary. We did, something special for it. And they're just not going to, at least for the time being, not going to invest in doing that again. Who knows? They might even be wanting to let teams kind of do their own reveals for like the new cars anyway, instead of just having like, a whole bunch of new but not real, mule cars at the event.
Oh, I think that's exactly what you're going to see. I think you're going to see 10 teams who don't want to say anything until that first test.
It will look like the 3D model.
It's going to look like it's going to be the FIA car with a team livery on it. That's what you're going to get, and you're going to see what the new uniforms look like. And everybody's going to talk about, other than maybe Audi, how great their car is, because apparently Audi is convinced that they're going to be bad.
Yes.
So
it's not a good start.
No, I mean, everything I hear coming out of that just says we're going to be bad, and we kind of know it. But anyway, we'll leave them there for now. But anyway, no big reveal. It looks like it's going to be back on the team. So look for the more marketing sensitive teams to do bigger launches and look for the smaller teams to probably not do as much. So it's kind of how we've rolled with that. But focusing on this weekend before we hop into our track facts, Arvid Lindblad, junior driver for Red Bull, up and coming star, racing currently in F2, 17 years old, has been granted an F1 super license exception. He can now be a reserve driver starting at this weekend's Canadian Grand Prix. Do want to put a note out there. Red Bull had put in the request long before Max got into any of the penalty point issues. It was like 6-8 weeks ago. So this is not the knee-jerk move to, oh my God, Max is going to get a race ban. We got to have Arvid Lindblad being the only one who's ready. But he will be on standby if he's needed, along with, I think, Iwasa, who's also racing in Super Formula. So he may not be quite as available. But given that there's no F2 this weekend, given that Le Mans is this weekend, and we've got, Red Bull drivers, and former F1 drivers all over the place, at least it looks like Red Bull's kind of got a full house if they happen to need it.
Yeah, it may not be a knee-jerk reaction, but it's definitely very convenient.
Yes.
That they have him available if they need him. Max does have to get through the next 2 race weekends without getting a penalty point, or else he risks that ban. So, it is good. And obviously, I don't want Max Verstappen to get a race ban. I think that would look bad for everybody. Look bad for him, look bad for Red Bull, look bad for Formula One. Not be good.
No,
but it could also be cool to see Arvid Lindblad, on the track. He's just, kind of another one of those big superstar up and coming talents. So that would be cool. I just don't want it to get to the point where Max Verstappen is serving a race ban that we end up seeing that happen.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I want to root for my guys to win the championship, and I do that fully passionately, but I want to win it the right way. I don't want them to win. I don't want Oscar Orlando, if they manage to bring this thing home, to win it on the margin of like 25 points because Max Verstappen got a race ban. That to me is not fun. It's not interesting. Don't want it. Don't want to see it. I hope it doesn't. I seriously hope that it doesn't happen. It would suck to anybody who wants to spend the amount of money that it takes to go to an F1 event, regardless of where it is, to not have one of the game's biggest stars there for whatever reason. And Max is one of the biggest stars. You got to hand it to him. He's earned that. So that would be a bad thing. I am not rooting for a race ban at all. I want him to mind his P's and Q's for 2 weeks, and then let's go racing and let's have an actual fight of the championship. That's not how. I don't ever want to win a championship and then have all the Red Bull fans out there put an asterisk on it. Well, they only won because he got banned because of some
that would require
penalty.
Max keeping up as well. But yeah, I see where you're going with that. It would. I'm more agreeing with you that it would suck for any fans that bought tickets to these races, 6-9 months, a year ago. Huge Max Verstappen fan, and then suddenly it's like the week before you're going to the race. It's like, you got banned. You're not going to get to see your favorite driver.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. And I don't think he's going to. I think he will, like I said, I think this is a weekend he will mind his P's and Q's and will be on best behavior. Cody crosses everything that he can, fingers, toes, and whatever else he can. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. So that's basically it for the news. You guys are now pretty much all caught up. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll re-rack. We'll come back. We'll get into our track facts from Pirelli Motorsport. We'll talk about the circuit Gilles Villeneuve and get you all ready for that. We'll look at some of the weather. And then we'll talk about what we think is going to happen over the course of the weekend. We'll get into our predictions, and we'll tell you when and where you can find your F1 this weekend. So come on back. You'll enjoy it. You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back on in. This is Season 7, Episode number 19 of the Outlap F1 Podcast. It's our 2025 Canadian GP preview show. You've got Andy, and I'm along with the birthday weekend boy, Cody, this weekend. I wanted to wish you a very happy birthday. Appreciate you and glad that you are a year older and a year wiser and all of the good stuff that comes with that. We just wrapped up our news segment. We're now going to get into our GP weekend proper, and we will start that with our track facts brought to us by the good folks at Pirelli Motorsport. So, Cody, if you can, tell us about the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
All right. So, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Number of laps around the circuit for the Grand Prix is going to be 70, and the length of the track circuit is 4.361 kilometers. That's 2.709 miles. The tire selection from Pirelli for this race is going to be the C4, C5, and C6 tire compounds. So we're going softer than we did last year. We're using that new softest C6 tire. So that'll be interesting to see. Track characteristics from Pirelli are a little different than last year. We've got a 4 out of 5 for traction, a 5 out of 5 for braking, 1 out of 5 for lateral load, a 3 out of 5 for tire stress, 5 out of 5 for track evolution, a 2 out of 5 for asphalt grip, a 1 out of 5 for asphalt abrasion, and a 1 out of 5 for downforce. The qualifying lap record for this circuit was set by Sebastian Vettel back in 2019, so when he was driving for Ferrari, and that was with a 1 minute 10.240 seconds, while the race lap record is going to go to Valtteri Bottas, set in the same year, 2019. It's funny how many track records are coming from that year. He set that with a 1 minute 13.078 seconds. Most wins in Canada, and there have been a lot of them. It's a tie between two of the greats. We got Lewis Hamilton and Michael Schumacher, each with 7 wins here. And then second place, you go all the way down to 3 wins, which has been accomplished by both Nelson Piquet and Max Verstappen as of last year. And then we have a whopping 6 drivers that are tied at 2 wins apiece. A couple of notable drivers there are Sebastian Vettel and Ayrton Senna. Most constructor wins in Canada is going to be 14 for Ferrari, but McLaren is only 1 behind them with 13, so you never know, they might tie that up this year. Then we have Williams in 3rd place with 7 wins, and Red Bull in 4th with 5 wins. What's the circuit like, Andy?
All right, the fast, low downforce circuit is always one of the driver's favorites. The track is quite stop-start with lots of heavy braking chicanes and the famous hairpin to get the anchors working very hard. It's always a very brake-sensitive circuit. Out of the corners, though, the track is quick and flowing, while the most iconic piece of the circuit comes right at the end of the lap, the Wall of Champions, so-called after excursions into it from Damon Hill, Jacques Villeneuve, and Michael Schumacher during that infamous 1999 Canadian Grand Prix weekend where all 3 of them crashed out in the exact same spot and all hit the same wall. As for the weather this weekend, it's looking pretty good. This is about right down the middle as you can get. So for qualifying, we're looking for partly cloudy in the morning with cloudy skies in the afternoon. So take note, Mercedes fans. It's going to be kind of cool. High near 70. Does that bring them back more into play? Winds light and variable, only a 20% chance of rain, so it doesn't look like we're going to be interrupted there. For Sunday, intervals of clouds and sunshine. High near 75, so a bit warmer, but not totally hugely amount so. Winds again very light and variable, so it doesn't look like the wind is going to play a factor. A scant 15% chance of rain. All right, so yeah, it's the Canadian track that we are used to seeing, unchanged, but always one of the best. All right, obviously the 3 DRS zones lead to some good passing opportunities. We've got the hairpin. So yeah, it looks like this is a track you can overtake, so it's not necessarily just a qualifying track, but obviously qualifying will play a big part. And as we are always apt to do, now we're going to talk about what we think will happen in the course of this weekend, and we will start with our qualifying predictions. Last year's pole sitter was George Russell, who I believe tied on lap time. I think it was with Max Verstappen, but because Russell set the lap time first, he got pole position. in one of the crazier qualifyings that I can remember because I watched it from a rest stop in Madison, Wisconsin, as I was trying to drive back with my iPad and my phone and my mobile internet and my backpack all trying to work, and somehow I managed to watch qualifying. But
you are dedicated.
Yeah. If you know me, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to try to prove you wrong. Let's put it that way. But anyway, Cody, who do you think is going to take the 2025 pole? Who do you got?
I tried to predict Max Verstappen for pole and win and all that good stuff last race. And, I'm starting to feel it going away. I'm still wearing the Red Bull hat. I haven't made the switch permanently over to the McLaren hat yet. But I do think, see which way the winds are blowing. I do think it would take some pretty monumental feats for Max Verstappen to really get back into the championship hunt. I think it's a battle between our two McLaren drivers at this point. It really has been, but now even more so. I think I got to go for Oscar Piastri. He's been rock solid for pretty much the entire season. Has had a much better handle on the car, especially in race trim, but has been out-qualifying Lando Norris as well. Lando still has plenty of time to make the comeback. It is still a very close fight. But as things stand, I think Oscar Piastri is going to have the edge.
Well, that's interesting that you went that direction. I went in a different direction, as you can see from the note here. And the reason I did this is because this, to me, is my canary test track. If McLaren do it here, where they have been god-awful for 10 plus years, if they manage to pull it off here, that car's for real. I will totally subscribe.
We're a third of the way through the season, and they have won almost every race.
But this venue has always been McLaren kryptonite. Weird shit happens to them here, and it's a track that I think suits Max Verstappen, suits the characteristics of that car, and as a qualifier, I think Max can pull something special out of the bag here. So I'm going weird here. I'm actually going to take Max for pole on this one. I believe in them. Right. I do believe in the McLaren car. That's never been a doubt. But it's just something about this track. Every time I think they're going to do well, something weirdo happens. It's just strange. But anyway, our qualifying pole time last year was a 1:12 dead 0:00. Cody, what you got? Do we go faster or slower than do we think last year?
I definitely think we're going faster. That is the trend with these cars. It does look like we're going to get good weather, so that's probably not going to play a huge factor to slow us down. So I'm going to go with a 1 minute 11.439 seconds.
Yeah, the fact that we're seeing a C6 tire leads me to think that we're probably going to end up faster. The question is how much faster. And because this is such a long circuit, we've seen those C6 tires kind of give up at the end. So I'm wondering if you're going to see some really good Sector 1s and some interesting Sector 2s and Sector 3 be who can make it all the way to the end. So I think we're going to go faster, but I don't know that we're going to go a ton faster. So I've got a 111.758. I'm actually a bit slower than you are there. All right. So moving into our race prediction, our podium last year was Max Verstappen taking the win in the chaotic, wet, dry, wet again, weird race. Lando Norris did manage to come home second in a race that I think if you're a McLaren fan, you kind of said this one kind of sort of got away from them. And then George Russell did manage to come home in P3 as a podium for Mercedes there. So Cody, who do you got on your race podium and what order do you have them?
I do think we're going to have a McLaren 1-2. I have Oscar Piastri taking the win. I've got Lando Norris coming in second again. So you opening up that championship lead for Oscar just a tiny bit more. And assuming he can keep it clean and not get banned before Sunday, I do think that Max Verstappen will still be in the mix. I do have him getting the podium this time. I really think he probably should have had the podium last time out, but that definitely got away from him. So hopefully his luck will be different here.
All right, very good. I do think this is going to be one of those where I think Max fights it early. Like I said, I've got him on the pole, but I do have Oscar eventually overtaking him at some point, possibly near the end of that first stint, because if it becomes a tire wear race, it's definitely going to be more in the McLaren court. So I've got Oscar taking the win, Max hanging around though in P2, and I've got Lando coming home P3 because it's just not a good Lando track. I don't get the same vibes like I do like at Monaco, where like he can kind of take over. Interesting. We're gonna see, but that's my race podium, at least for now. All right, so we'll move into our fastest lap and the driver. The 2024 fastest lap was set by Lewis Hamilton, which is a 1:14.856. Cody, what you got here?
I got Max Verstappen setting the fastest lap. I do think he's going to be probably following around the McLarens for most of the race. He might be in a spot to, maybe get a little bit of a draft, a little bit of some DRS, maybe some point later in the race after some pit stops with some fresh tires, put him in a position to get that fastest lap. So I got Max doing it, and I got him doing it with a 1 minute 14.555 seconds.
All right, very good. I'm going to have Oscar Piastri setting the fastest lap because I do think if he gets in front, he can control it. And that's kind of when he's cooking. So I've got a slightly faster than you, though, on race pace here. 1:14.358, because I think we are going to be on softer tires. The medium will be the C5. So we'll see what that kind of does to it there. All right, for bonus picks, I like your selections here. You picked P6, P8, and P11. I'll go first with this one. I've got P6. I've got Lewis Hamilton coming home there. P8. I don't know how they're going to do it, but Haas does this thing where they show up. Now, they've got a special livery for their retro livery for their original car design. I actually think it looks pretty cool. So I've got Esteban Ocon somehow, some way. Don't know how, but going to get there. It's a P8. And P11, it does feel like this is a Racing Bulls-ish place. You got one. I took the other one. I took Liam Lawson. So, Cody, what you got here?
I agree with you that Haas has been doing some weird magical things lately. So far this year, they've either been great or awful. There's no middle ground really for them. So I don't know where they're going to squeeze in, but it's not going to be in 6th, 8th, and 11th according to me. I have Kimi Antonelli placing in 6th place. I think the Mercedes are going to be decent, but they do seem to have lost some pace, even compared to like Ferrari. Definitely compared to the McLarens. So I think 6 is probably a reasonable spot for Antonelli to slot into. I've got Carlos Sainz coming in 8th place, getting some good points for Williams. Hoping that both Williams drivers are in the mix there. And then I do have the other Racing Bulls driver, Isaac Hadjar, coming in P11. Unfortunately for him, just missing out on points.
Yeah, this could be one of those tracks where Williams, if they qualify well and they can get both cars into Q3, could be a pain in a lot of cars' rear ends come Sunday, because that car is so good in a straight line, and just historically has always been that way. And it becomes really hard to pass if you don't have the great straight line speed, as a lot of people found out last year. So if they can keep it on the track, this could be a really good weekend for Williams. So if you're a Williams fan, be excited. This is a venue for you. All right. So for the prop bet, and you picked this one. I did not pick this one. You picked this one all the way. You offered up, does Max get a race ban potentially following this weekend? I'm going to say no, because I think the decider is the next race. I think he will be fine here. But in Austria, where he's got Max Verstappen Nation and the Orange Army will be there in full force, he will want to win that race. And that will be, does he do something that, because he wants to win it so bad, does he maybe go over the line? I don't think he's going to go over the line here. I think he's going to be very, very mindful of his P's and Q's to get through it. So I don't see a race ban happening here for sure. But I'm not so sure about the next one. But anyway, Cody, what's your thought here?
God, I hope not. No, I agree with you that he's going to try to be very mindful this weekend. I do think that it's either going to be he's going to get in first place at the beginning of the race and he's going to, try to romp off to a win, or if it looks like he's going to get past, he's not going to fight it too hard. If he doesn't get the lead right out of the gate, he's not going to fight it too hard. He's going to probably just try to come home with whatever points he can, as you said. Weird stuff does happen, though. Like, you can accidentally, we're talking about one penalty point here. Right. Like, weird accidents happen. We've had, you could accidentally block somebody in qualifying or something and get that penalty point and be screwed. Now, I do think that even if something like that happened, if it wasn't super egregious, I think the FIA would probably look the other way to avoid giving him the race ban.
Yeah.
So long as he's not like literally running into the side of George Russell again. I think he'd probably be okay. I do also kind of agree with you that the next race will be the real decider because it's the home of Red Bull and it's in Europe. There's going to be a lot of Max fans there. He has died on that hill at that race before. So,
it's a track that just leads to conflict and weird stuff can happen there in Austria. So anyway, so you're in the no category. I'm in the no category. We think Max will get through this weekend. Okay. All right. So when and where can you watch your F1 this weekend? Obviously, F1 TV is a perfectly viable option if you can get it, if you're in the U.S. However, ESPN Family and Networks also has you pretty much covered over the course of the weekend. 1:30 p.m. Eastern kicks off free practice 1. F1 in daylight, full daylight for us this time. 1:30 p.m. Eastern, that's going to be on ESPNU. FP2 kicks off 5 p.m. Eastern, so a little bit as your workday is ending. Come in for some Formula One practice and see who's fast and who isn't. Also on ESPNU. FP3, 12:30 p.m. Eastern kicks off ESPN2, so a little bit. So for us, it's 11:30, so late morning for us. Qualifying, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. ESPN2 is your home for that. And the race on Sunday, big ABC. So I told this story last time, and our good friend Kevin Kelly, I don't think quite understood. If you want to do the thing where you want to get the timing as close to the race broadcast, you have to watch ABC over the air on old school antennas, not on streaming. If you do streaming, it's not going to work. But if you watch it with old school antennas, it is as close to the timing as you can get. So when the races are on big ABC, that's usually how I do it. I hook it up old school and I watch it on literally a set of old rabbit ears that pick up the digital signal. And I watch my F1 that way. And then I've got my onboards and stuff that are always the same delay that they always are. But that would be my recommendation for you there. A bit of an insider tip on how to watch this race. When they are on big ABC, that's when you can take advantage of it. So, Cody, any final thoughts before we hop on out for get ready for the weekend?
Canada has had some fantastic races in the past. A lot of greats. This is the home of Lewis Hamilton's first win, and I was trying to make this statement earlier and realized I was on mute. So if you watch this back and you see me moving my mouth and nothing's coming out, totally forgot I was on mute. But yeah, I get to say it now. This is a fun track. We've had some really fun ones. We had a really fun one last year where I thought Lando was going to take it and ended up getting a little tripped up by the changing weather, but this time out he might be able to pull it off. So I think we are in for another good one.
Yep, and we will be here to recap all of the good, the dry, the wet. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of wet this time, but whatever happens over the course of the weekend, we will be back to recap it. Hopefully late on Sunday. Happy Father's Day in advance to all of the dads out there. And happy birthday, Cody, one more time, as you celebrate your birthday nuptials this weekend as well. So for Cody, it's been Andy. Take care of yourselves out there. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at OutlapF1 Podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.